Peace, family. This is your brother, Marc Lamont Hill. Welcome to Night School. Every night here on the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel, we hold Night School, where we go over the most contested subjects, the most intense debates, the most controversial topics going on in the world today. And tonight is no different. It's so good to see everybody. It's so good to see y'all here on Night School. There are a million things going on in the world. There are a million topics that we have to wrestle with. There are so many things happening, and I'm excited to be talking to all of you about it. I want to shout out everybody here from the Night School crew, the Hustle crew, who's here every single night. I appreciate your generosity. I appreciate your love. I appreciate your care, your concern, and I appreciate your commitment and loyalty. Also, shout out to everybody who's here for the first time. Night School, we go every single night, and we do our best to cover stuff. So, you know, tonight you will see the gamut. And that's what we do every night at Night School. You know, we're going to cover some pop culture stuff. We're going to cover some politics. We're going to do some domestic stuff, some international stuff. We're going to cover as much as we can in the amount of time that we have here. Man, it is Black History Month. Like I told y'all, I am on the run. I am traveling every day. I'm doing my absolute best to be here every night. When March comes, we'll be back to normal because, you know, they don't hire Black folk after a certain time. And I feel you as a kid. You ain't lying. Y'all here even when I'm not. And I apologize for the delay as always, man. Y'all didn't miss class, Kismet. It's my fault for being late. I apologize. I'm on the road, so I'm literally like landing and like, you know, hoping flights get in and trains get in and then rushing to the studio, rushing to the house, rushing to the hotel, rushing to this, that, and the third. So please understand, charge it. I ain't gonna say charge it to my head because it's not a mistake. It's just it's an unfortunate piece of the grind from Martin Luther King Day until March 1st is how we get down. But that said, man, I'm so excited to see y'all, man. We got a lot of news going on today. Last night we covered a bunch of stuff. Y'all, if y'all had as much fun as I did, let me know. Hit that thumbs up. Let me know. But we had a great time last night. We ended up going we started at 10:15 and went to like 1 in the morning. It was crazy. We were like 2.5 hours. I never expected to go that far or that long on the topics, man. But once we got through the news, once we got through the DEI, and we got through the Gaza updates, and we got through all the other stuff, it was just wild to sit and just talk about music, to talk about R&B, to talk about hip hop, to talk about soul, to talk about love. Man, we had a great time last night. If you missed last night's episode of Night School, make sure you check it out. We had Dr. Christopher Emden, Dr. QB Lindsay, and we had Aaron Boykin, also known as Professor Slap or Slap the Professor. My homie, all of them are my friends. I love all of them for, you know, all the reasons. And to have all of them here last night building and laughing and having a good time was great. And we got off some Drake jokes, man. I always love to get off some Drake jokes. Yo, like they said, the Toya teacher said, a time was had last night. Yo, we had such a good time. Grio Niga said, Mark, your light should be more amber or warm. It will make your skin pop. I appreciate that. I'm gonna work on that. We still get this lighting together. I think the lighting in the camera is clearer and better than it was in the last couple of weeks. I think the last episodes, the lighting and camera has been amazingly better. But we still got a long way to go, man. I'm trying to get it going. I'm changing the background slowly but surely. You know, my skin will pop too if I, you know, put on some lotion or something, maybe brush my hair. But like I said, I'm on the road, I'm grinding. Tonight, we also celebrated the 801st, but more importantly, the 10th anniversary of the Joe Budden podcast. So I was traveling to do that as well. It's funny, people are saying, this camera is really clear. This is the same camera. I've been using the same camera for 2 years. It's mad funny to hear people say it, because one night when I was talking to Peter Beinart, people were like, they were like, you need a new camera, get a new camera, you broke ass need a camera, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yo, it's the same camera. It's a very nice quality camera. The issue was, and then it was the background. To Bullet's point, it was the background. Part of what the background did was there were too many things happening in the background, which was making the camera struggle to lock in on me. And so it was making me blurrier than it needed to be. and there's some other reasons, but that's the long and short of it. But I ain't changed the camera. I ain't moved an inch. So, but we working on it. We're gonna get some stuff. Bullet the Bunny's in the room too. We gotta get Bullet the Bunny back on here. But why don't you come on tonight and hang out with us for a little bit if you got time, if you have the inclination and the time. I want you to come on and hang out just for a couple minutes as we talk about these stories. If not, you could come on tomorrow or one of these other days soon, because you are so much fun. D. Marie said, I look more rested tonight. What's funny is I didn't get much sleep. My son has been sick. But I do feel more energized the last couple of days. A Jazz LP said, Mark, yeah, she got to put her lipstick on real quick. She's on her way. That's what I'm talking about. I don't know if Dallas Finest Jazz LP is your actual agent, but it sounds like your representation said that you're available. So come on through. In the meantime, I'm going to get started with some of these stories. I know some of y'all waiting. I don't want to delay. What coffee are we sipping today? Yeah, I need a cup of coffee today. Anyway, we'll talk about it. Let's get to the stories. We're going to start with a story that's relatively breaking news. ASAP Rocky. Let me do that again. ASAP Rocky walks free. If you didn't know, breaking news, ASAP Rocky just avoided 24 years in prison. A jury found the rapper not guilty of felony assault after his former friend ASAP Rocky accused him of firing a gun during a 2021 Hollywood confrontation. This has been one of the biggest trials, not Young Thug big, but this has been one of the biggest trials in recent years for a rap artist or for really any artist in pop culture. So this was a big deal. He was looking at real time, and it was unclear how this thing was going to turn out. It got crazy today. There was a lot of tension. Even though it looked like it was going in ASAP's favor, even though it looked like the witness had fallen apart, the prosecution gained some traction over this alleged stunt gun. And so there was some back and forth going on. But I thought ASAP was going to win this trial. I've been saying that for weeks. And the reason I thought that is because they offered him 6 months. If you're looking at 24 years and the prosecution offers you 6 months, it's not because they're doing you a favor. It's not because they like you. It's because they know they ain't got no case. Now, I don't know you, but I don't know what you all are thinking. But I know that if I was looking at 24 years, which is, I'm a black man in America, that's like life. I don't know if I would turn down 6 months. I don't know if I would turn down 6 months. For me to turn down 6 months, and if my lawyer to advise me to turn down 6 months, I must have a hell of a case. A hell of a case. Let's look at the reaction when he got that verdict. Not guilty. Yo. They tried for a minute. The bailiffs and the police tried to stop it. Then they said, you know what? Okay. Then we get big. They gonna hold him in contempt. Hold down. Verdict has to be read up to the end. Repeat again. We, the jury, above the type of action, find the defendant, Marquis Mayor, not guilty of semi-automatic firearm in violation of Penal Code Section 245, Section B, a felony charging count 1 of the information. This 18th day of February 2025, jury seat number 9, 4 person. All right. Title of court and costs. We, the jury, in the above title action, find the defendant, Marquis Mayor, not guilty of the crime of assault with firearm in violation of Penal Code Section 245, Section B, a felony of charging count 2 of the information. This 18th day of February 2025, juror seat number 9, 4 person.
During this trial, I watched you periodically. You did what we asked of you at the very beginning, which is to give both sides a fair trial, pay attention, use your common sense, apply the law, and base your verdict on I know you took extensive notes, and you took this as seriously as any jury could. We cannot have jury trials without folks like you. So you certainly have my gratitude. I want to extend to you my best wishes. Again, thank you. The admonition to not discuss the case no longer applies. You can talk about the case with anybody you want to, or nobody if you don't want to. Alex has your certificates of completion. You can take your juror badges with you. Thank you again. You are excused.
Everybody remain seated in the public. We're going to let the jurors walk out first.
So that is the live footage. I'm hearing some people say that it's a little bit pixelated. I don't know if that's me, you, whatever. Hopefully y'all can still see me clearly. If not, let me know. But you shouldn't be. ASAP Choppy is funny. ASAP Walkie was funny too. Here's the deal, y'all. ASAP took them 6 months and said no thank you. He rolled his trial out. He followed the advice of his lawyers, and he won. I don't know the details of what he and his lawyers were talking about, but he made a high stakes choice, and it worked. Rihanna in that courtroom with 2 babies, either literally or symbolically, might sway a jury as well. I mean, being Rihanna's husband can't hurt. Being Rihanna's baby daddy can't hurt. But at the end of the day, this was a weak case, and they probably shouldn't have prosecuted it. And I'm sort of sorry to see this happen. To be quite honest, not guilty verdict, but the fact that he had to go through the trial in the first place. But anyway, just wanted to give y'all that update. There'll be a lot of other places that will cover this in a different way. But I wanted y'all at least have a basic update. Let me bring in one of our esteemed, of course, the night school chief correspondent. Welcome.
Oh, how's it going, Mark? How are you? Happy Black History Month, and
thank you.
On the road.
I am on the road, running, ripping. I'm so happy to be on the road again a little bit. For years, schools wouldn't book me. So because
you're in the cool kids club again.
I won't go that far. I used to get like 20 speeches a month. Now I get like 4, but at the universities. But I get a lot of other things like care events, Muslims for Palestine, a lot of like grassroots stuff. It's not a lot of money or anything like that, but I believe in the cause, and so it keeps me on the road a lot during Black History Month, talking about these relationships between Palestine and Black America, or talking about prison abolition, or talking about education and all the crazy shit going on in the world right now. It's a lot. But again, it's
Toni Morrison's birthday, isn't it?
It is the great Toni Morrison's birthday. What are you a Toni Morrison reader?
I have read Toni Morrison, yes. I think, if I'm being really honest, like the most respected and amazing thing I can say about Toni Morrison is she is my favorite author's favorite author, always. You know what I mean? Like, she's
That's
everyone's
real.
I think even you've said stuff about Beloved, and right?
Toni Morrison's in my top 3. Yeah. For me, I mean, Toni Morrison is it may be my favorite. I mean, Baldwin nonfiction, but in terms of fiction, it's definitely Toni Morrison right up there. Beloved for me, Bluest Eyes, Song of Solomon, amazing. Imani Perry, one of maybe the best, greatest intellectual of our generation. Toni Morrison looms so large for her, even in her new book Blue. What's it called? Something Blue. I just read it too. So I say that just to say you're right. Favorite writer is exactly right. And as Zakia just said, Toni Morrison will read an interviewer. Like there are few things better than a Toni Morrison interview, particularly when a white person asks her about like racism.
There's a famous clip. I think you're about to pull it up.
I got to.
Okay,
I got to.
And yes, to the chat, I unfortunately, yes, to my great chagrin, I am a white woman.
Yeah.
My apologies, especially in Black History Month. Can you believe it? Ugh, it's just terrible. It's just terrible.
I thought people would knew that. I mean, you don't like cosplay as like a non-white person. It's
No, I think most people are confused that I'm a woman first. I think that's the main thing. I don't think it's the white, although I don't know. Tell me, chat.
It's interesting. I would not have thought. Maybe I knew you already, so like I kind of knew that about you already. I didn't know you before this, but I knew you. I knew you. That's so interesting. I'm trying to pull up this Toni Morrison thing.
Everyone who while you're doing that, I'm gonna run interference for you so you can type, because I can't chew gum and walk at the same time. So yeah, it's funny because almost every single person thinks that's the first thing. Oh my God, you're a woman. And except for all the people who give me a hard time for using girl as a replacement for just about every noun or pronoun that is available to humans. But yes, I am indeed. Yes, I am. Let me tell you, I'm not apologizing for something I couldn't control. I want to acknowledge something that we all have to contend with every day, which is white supremacy. That's mostly it. And I think it's important for white people not to be afraid to acknowledge that and their role in that, especially during Black History Month. I mean, geez Louise, folks, what are we talking about here?
I think that's that's how I think about it as well. Like, I never want white people to apologize for being white. I do want white people to be accountable for being white, or for whiteness. Right, for white privilege and to reckon with white supremacy, because we all have to reckon with white supremacy. Y'all shouldn't be accepted from that. If anything, you have a greater duty and burden to wrestle with this stuff. So I'm with you. Let me pull up this video. It's I love this clip. And I love this response. I want to get y'all's responses too. It's Toni Morrison responding to an interviewer asking her about her use of white character, whether or not she uses white characters, and the why of it all.
Writing certainly marginalized whites. Why are they of no particular interest to you, or seemingly no particular interest?
Well, I was interested in another kind of literature that was not just confrontational, Black versus white. I was really interested in Black readership. And I wanted to do, I think, for me, the allegory or the parallel is this Black music, which is as splendid and complicated and wonderful as it is, because its audience was within its primary audience. The fact that it has become universal, worldwide, anyone, everyone can play it, and it has evolved, is because it wasn't tampered with and editorialized within the community. So I wanted the literature that I wrote to be that way. I could just go straight to where the soil was, where the fertility was in this landscape. And also, I wanted to feel free not to have the white gaze in this place that was so precious to me, which is the work.
And you will maintain this safe place for yourself, for your art? You don't think you will ever change and write books that incorporate white lives into them substantially?
I have done.
In a substantial way?
You can't understand how powerfully racist that question is, can you? Because you could never ask a white author, when are you going to write about Black people? Whether he did or not, or she did or not. Even the inquiry comes from a position of being in the center.
And being used to being in the center.
And being used to being in the center. And saying, is it ever possible that you will enter the mainstream? It's inconceivable that where I already am is the mainstream.
Woo!
Oh no, that wasn't the implication of my question. I think you are very, very much in the mainstream. It's a question of the subject of your narrative, whether you want to alter the parameters of it, whether you see any benefit in doing that.
The accent makes it worse, I feel.
Advantages in doing it from your point of view.
Artistic disadvantages. There are no pluses for me. being an African American writer is sort of like being a Russian writer who writes about Russia, in Russian, for Russians. And the fact that it gets translated and read by other people is a benefit. It's a plus. But he's not obliged to ever consider writing about French people.
It's a fascinating exchange for all the reasons. Bullet, you said it. If Yolu said the same thing, the British accent definitely doesn't. It definitely doesn't help.
Let me tell you something that I find bizarre about that, white folk. It's almost like she's talking about Toni Morrison as if she's like a filter on TikTok or Instagram. Like, when's Toni Morrison going to give a white person the Toni Morrison treatment, like the Ken Burns documentary? Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's so insulting, and it's so perfectly white woman, because it's so perfectly is like, I've read books, I know things, and I revere your art. Why doesn't it apply to me? Because I read things, you know, I'm second best. And just to quote a great man, pick me. You know what I mean?
Well done, well done. You know, it's so interesting to hear and think about Toni Morrison in that way. And I had the benefit of we weren't friends by any stretch, but I knew Toni Morrison. I had the opportunity to meet Toni Morrison and spend some time with her at Princeton when she was there. She was the colleague to many of my dear friends and a mentor to some of my mentors. And she was just one of those powerfully, wonderfully direct, hilariously direct people. One day, I won't do it today, but one day I'll tell y'all a story about her and bell hooks. That is among the funniest things I've ever heard in my life. It comes up in my house at least once a month, maybe once a week, actually. But beyond that, Toni Morrison was a genius, and I love the fact that Toni Morrison said, you know, when I say people, I mean Black people, and that she didn't feel that she had to move to the center. She said she operated from the margins and reclaimed it as the center. And that's the beauty of it. If y'all don't read Toni Morrison, please go read some Toni Morrison. Go read The Bluest Eye. I did my high school term paper on The Bluest Eye. Go read The Bluest Eye. Go read Beloved. Go read Song of Solomon. What
was the teacher who assigned it to you? Who was do you remember the teacher who assigned that to you? I think for
12th grade I could pick a book, but it was assigned in the 9th grade by Mrs. Coleman was her name, and I only remember because she gave me a bad grade on my Malcolm X paper. Told me I didn't really write it. I never really got over it.
What was this like a were you wronged? I assume you were, because I
was totally wrong. It's the only thing I ever worked hard on. It's the only thing I actually deserved a good grade on in high school. And it was interesting. I saw her like years later. In fact, she came into my bookstore in 2018 and asked me to sign a book for her. And
I was going to say, please tell me she asked for a discount. I was hoping for discount. Oh,
yeah. She did ask me to sign it, and I never told her. The petty in me wanted to be like, you know, are you sure I wrote this book? You know, but like, for what? You know, it didn't feel right in the moment. I'm not above that by any stretch. I have plenty of petty, but it didn't feel right when I did it. By the way, y'all, also Tar Baby, which was her second book, another great one. Some people didn't get into Toni Morrison's newer books, not because they weren't great, but just because I kind of canonized her. So they were still like focused on the old stuff. They didn't read like A Mercy, which is another amazing book. But y'all should do it. Home is another great one. Anyway, we'll talk about that another time. But just read Toni Morrison, celebrate Toni Morrison. Karen D said, Mark, you're too easy. Karen told me that too offline before, if I remember correctly.
Well,
I don't know if I'm too easy.
I'll call that. I think Karen is correct. I don't think you're too easy on women. I'm gonna try. Let me rephrase. Let me put it in my own words because I don't want to co-opt Karen's idea here. I believe that there is a bit of politeness that exists that extends much further for your lady guests. And I also understand the optics of being square to square and screaming. You know what I'm saying? I also understand the optics of being, handsome black man, karate chopping some tiny little white lady like myself, 6 feet tall.
Look like Kramer on Seinfeld. He went to karate class.
But I mean, when we're talking about someone like Candace Owens, I mean, I've seen you pull punches, and it hurts. It hurts a woman's soul.
Yeah, you're right. Y'all are both right. I know y'all right. I mean, I pull punches sometimes with women guests. I think that's fair. It's not to go easy. It's to deliver a bigger point or to serve a bigger purpose. But I get why people would feel a way about that. If your Lou kind of hits that on, he said I was definitely going to call it polite because the world has so much misogyny, and that is a big part of it. Toya teacher said the JVP feels that you favor women. Exactly, they say that I cape for women all the time. I'm like, I never.
Women are awesome, so there's that.
They really kind of are. They really kind of are. All right, we got another story we gotta get to.
Let's get to it.
I can't sit here and just have fun with Bullet the Bunny all day.
Yeah, please. When I saw A$AP Rocky dive into Rihanna's arms, I knew I was in the right place.
And I knew that. Let me not make that joke. Love you, wife. Love you, wife. Donald Trump. He is the gifted. Keeps on giving, or maybe that's the wrong language to use. He's more like a sword that returns quite often. Every time, and it's interesting because as a news person, there's a way that you want to ignore him, but because he's at the helm of the most powerful empire in the world, there's a way that you can't ignore him. So anyway, let's talk about it. I always feel the need to apologize for why I'm talking about Donald Trump, but it's actually quite important. The government just fired the wrong people, and now America's food supply is at risk. The USDA accidentally laid off key scientists fighting the bird flu outbreak right when cases are rising, and egg prices, as you all know, many of you know, are skyrocketing. Now they're scrambling, no pun intended, to rehire these people. You see, it's not just the bird flu. Trump's mass government firings are hitting food safety, nuclear safety, and health research. Even Republicans are warning that this could absolutely dismantle or undermine the country's ability to respond to crises. With 23 million birds infected and human cases are now confirmed, the question is, can the government fix this problem, this mess? I don't even call it a problem. At this point, it's a crisis before it's too late. This feels, Bullet, like a kind of obvious and foreseeable problem, that if you fire a bunch of people with expertise and you lose the expertise, the thing about which they are experts will come back to bite you. I mean, it seems oddly foreseeable, which makes me wonder, is Trump not seeing the obvious, or is he doing exactly what he wants to see done?
Well, I think it's very generous to say that Trump sees or does any of this. That's number one. In my opinion, I don't, to me, this is Project 2025 and like all those horrible vampires like Stephen Miller crying on like every show he can get on. And then he has like a doppelganger now, Stephen Miller, with like more hair, but like also less handsome. I don't know how that was possible, but it is. And anyway, so my take on the whole thing is that, yeah, these guys are going to run it into the ground. They do not care. They have no feelings. I know a lot of people who work in the federal government, people who were afraid and took the buyout. I know people who are panicking. And I think this is exactly what Elon did at Twitter too, right? Because he fired a bunch of people that he realized were integral to Twitter actually working. I won't call it the letter. And it turns out that he had to hire them back and pay him a lot more money. And I think this kind of a shock and awe thing, it's, this is strategy 101. You confuse people. No one knows where to go. I know you feel it. I feel it. Everyone feels it. Hassan Piker feels it. We're all feeling it. I mean, I didn't mean to say like the three of us, the triad. But I will say that like
we're all very close.
Yeah, exactly. Hassan, how you doing? Hello. Put in a good word. I've seen your watermelon video many times. Shout out to Rolando DD when he watches this back. But anyway, the truth of the matter is that this is by design. This is strategy 101. I don't have an answer for it. I really, he's a very good man. I wish I did. I know a lot of people who are searching for answers. I have an event tomorrow. I'm bringing my art. I'm doing my best, but this is going to continue. And to your point about, I feel bad when I have to talk about Trump, but I know I have to. I mean, that is the thing, right? This is the circle that eats itself. This is our president. He's going to create the news. And how do you live in this world and not feed it? I mean, for me, I just keep calling him President Musk, and maybe they'll get angry with each other and eat each other alive like Mothra and Godzilla.
They ain't far. I watched that Elon Musk and Netanyahu exchange, and it's kind of like, yeah, I'm not technically president. It's like that's a wild thing to say. And Trump ain't going to put up, his ego won't allow him to put up with that.
Absolutely not. They're burning too hot. They're burning way too hot and close to each other. They're going to blow each other up, and I love that. So I think fuel that. You know what I mean? I think we should all be doing our part as the proletariat and fueling that wherever we can. We should be trying to fuel the divisions between these insane, Marvel comic villains.
Exactly.
On this.
We got a comment coming in from Rosa Billy, which I think is a very important one. She said, been watching the data. Bird flu has been building in the population over the past 2 years. It's been obvious and foreseeable for a long time. Trump and Biden both got it public health. That point is so important. The idea of shrinking the state and shrinking the public sector is part of the neoliberal agenda. We don't want to critique Trump at the expense of an equally rigorous and thoughtful and accurate analysis of how the state is functioning, irrespective of whether the Democrat or the Republican, both wings on the same bird, have equally been complicit in this. Yes, Donald Trump is doing some awful stuff, and no, Trump and Biden aren't the same. But Biden has followed the neoliberal playbook. He's followed the imperialist playbook. He has followed the Zionist playbook. He has followed the deportation playbook, just like everybody else. And so when you look at a thing like this, yes, Trump firing a bunch of scientists is not a good idea when you're trying to stop bird flu. But gutting public health for decades is also not, or years is not a good thing. And at some point, in some ways, decades. We saw the same thing in the 80s. Reagan absolutely shrunk the state, but the elimination of the education department was an initiative first proposed under who? Jimmy Carter. When you talk about foreign policy, obviously, when we look at Iran, we're talking about Carter, not Reagan. When we talk about the elimination of federal funding for mental health facilities, that was started under Carter, not Reagan. So again, there's a whole host of public policies that Democrats have been responsible for, and yet somehow we only focus on the Republicans. I'm not saying that to say, hey, Republicans ain't so bad. I'm here to say, stop looking for Democrats to save you. They are not going to do so. All right.
Yeah, 100%. And Rosability would say, and has said many times, that Joe Biden was terrible. Joe Biden did better than President Musk at COVID. See what I'm doing? I'm going to get it started.
I love it.
I'm going to make it happen. Anyways, you guys got to help me. This is what community is. Everybody chiming in to taunt two very fat white men. Anyways, so I totally lost my train of thought there.
It's okay. I'm gonna pause you there anyway, because I want to jump to another story that I think is important as well. It's from Trevor Noah. Trevor Noah, very important man. I guess I should let y'all see me too. Yep, there we go.
I'm intimidated.
I'm the voice of God. Trevor Noah just asked the question that nobody wants to touch. Was integration a mistake? On his podcast, Noah was talking about this. The podcast is called What Now? And the former Daily Show host pushed back on the idea that integration helped Black Americans. He argued that segregation without the racism might have been better. So then he brings on somebody to talk about this. And he brings on a brilliant sociologist, a good friend of mine, Ruha Benjamin, professor at Princeton University, who laid out why integration actually weakened Black communities, stripping them of self-sufficiency, businesses, and institutions. Noah even pointed to Finland, a mostly homogenous country, as proof that a lack of diversity isn't always a bad thing. But is it really the same thing as what happened in America? I'm going to pull up the question here because I think that it's an interesting one when it's proposed to a brilliant person like Ruha Benjamin. I'm going to, whoops, we got a little tech issue here. Let me see here. Where is that video? This is why I'm not allowed to do things unsupervised.
I'm curious if the chat can also chat. What do you think? Do you think that? I mean, I see that Zakia has an opinion here, and a lot of people probably do have an opinion about whether segregation was a better, more sustainable plan for the Black community specifically.
Yeah.
Or whether we gave up half of the farm for 1/10 of the supplies, maybe. I don't know.
I mean, it's a fascinating question. I want to bring up. I want y'all listen to this exchange. And as Bullet said, weigh in the comment section. Let's talk about it. And I want to get your take on the other side of this too.
Was the right move. And now I'm separating two things because I know in America people are like, well, of course. I mean, there was racism and there's segregation, and I go, yeah, no. I'm separating them. Let's separate someone being oppressed and someone not being able to get a job and someone not being able to get a bank loan. Let's take all of those, the negative things away, because I'll put myself out personally and say, I think whether we're talking about gifted kids who are anomalous, let's say, to the norm, whether we are talking about, and I mean anything that does not fit into a category, I think the part of the reason Finland is able to do it is because, have you been to Finland?
It's very homogeneous.
I've been to Finland. You know who's in Finland? Finnish people. That's it. And because they're all Finnish, there's an idea of like, no, we all head in the same direction. We all know what our actions mean. And that's a really powerful thing I've learned in communicating with other people. When I'm in a room with anyone where we start to tie together multiple things. So if I'm in a room with Black people, already there's like an implicit trust because we know what certain actions, words, and vibes mean. And then you're in a room with another African. Already. Now, even if you shout at me, I know what your shout means. The same way an Italian knows what an Italian shout means. Yeah. Right? I know I'm prefacing it with a lot because it's a loaded question. Yes. But I would love to know if you think integration was the right solution, maybe, on the other side of, America, of civil rights.
Yeah. No, I don't. And I don't think it's actually that controversial when, if you understand that segregation and integration weren't the only options. Like those are, within those two options, it may seem like integration is the more progressive. Like, of course, we don't want segregation. But again, when you're being integrated into institutions, into a culture that's a supremacist culture, that's a culture that feeds off of hierarchy, that feeds off of insecurity, anxiety, why are we being integrated into that? And so part of it is to question what we're being invited into. And so, again, when you think about the example of Finnish being homogenous, nation states are imagined. The national identity is not something that is, God-given. It's not something that, existed for eternity. These identities were created, maintained, made durable over time. And so part of the stretching our imagination is to recognize all of the things that have been made up, but made to seem immutable, fixed, intrinsic, including our national sort of identities. And so part of it is really like to denaturalize the things that we take for granted as somehow magically operating to make us feel connected to each other, and ask ourselves, how else can we be connected to engender this sense of solidarity where what I want for my kids, I also want for my neighbor's kids. I want for the kids who don't speak English. I want for the kids who are just arriving. And so again, to push ourselves, when you think about expanding our imagination, to make it more embracing of seeming differences that are not intrinsic, that are not something that are inevitable, My sister-in-law lives in Japan. And again, it's one of those places that people think, oh, it's homogenous. It's, from the outside, people think everyone is, a shared identity.
Yeah.
But Japanese of Korean descent, among many other groups, are treated like shit. They're treated, it's discriminated in so many different areas of life and education and healthcare. When two people go to marry, sometimes their families do a deep genealogical dive to find any Korean descent in the line before they. And so again, we are so creative in creating hierarchies and distinctions out of nothing, Why can't we channel that creativity to actually work in the opposite direction? If we're doing it to maintain hierarchies and division, perhaps we can do it to engender solidarity and connection, right? And I think it's a choice. When we give up our power and think, oh, this is something happening to us, we have to just navigate this crooked system as it is. I think, that only serves those who are currently benefiting from the status quo. And so
there's so much depth and nuance into what she's saying. And if you don't know Ruha Benjamin, read her books, read all of her books. She's a wonderful thinker on abolition, on imagination, on technology. She's written several great books, all of which I find very useful and instructive in so many ways. I think beginning with this question of how can we reimagine the world in ways that don't limit us to a binary choice is a great place to start, right? Because as she said, if you say, well, the choice is either integration or segregation, one of them sounds good, one of them sounds bad, but I think there is more complexity to that. Black folk didn't integrate or fight for integration. We didn't fight to integrate schools, for example, because we thought our IQs would go up if white people were in the room. We did so because we knew books would be there, and we knew there'd be a certain level of protection from the state. So it was always a pragmatic calculation around what the benefits were. It was never a fetishization of difference or of diversity, or particularly racial diversity. And so we always have to kind of hold on to that idea as we think about other possibilities. How do we get the best part of diversity? How do we get the best parts of integration without losing sight of the things that we had when we weren't integrated, like a certain kind of community solidarity, a certain kind of class diversity, a certain kind of institution building ethic? How do we hold on to those things? And for me, figuring out how to get the best of those worlds is the actual answer. Someone is asking a very important question, which is what's the middle ground? Now, I don't know off the top of my head. I don't know exactly what that mode is. And Trevor begins with this sort of historical counterfactual of, well, what would happen? Was this a mistake? I.e., what would happen if had we not done this? And I don't know what the answer is. I mean, part of what the Supreme Court determined is that separate is not equal in this country. Why? Because it's a white supremacist world. We lived in an apartheid nation. And so, like any apartheid nation, separate is never going to be equal. And that's why it was important to never be separate. But I don't know, where we would be if we'd stayed together. Would we have been able to organize freedom in a different way? Which should we have done what the Nation of Islam wanted to do and what other nationalists wanted to do, which was to completely separate and even designate certain states in the United States as ours. I mean, these are all possibilities. I don't have an answer, but I love the idea of reimagining what was possible and what is possible by saying, hey, even integration is something that we shouldn't take for granted as a good. Is it difficult for you to imagine a world where segregation could be good?
For me?
Because I struggle with it to imagine what that would look like.
So okay, a couple of things. One, I want to say that I, like you, I am a product of public school in the 90s. I don't know if you were a product of busing, but I certainly was.
I was, yeah.
Yeah. So what I find interesting, and I'm super interested to get your take on that, because I was literally having this conversation just a week ago. When we're talking about segregation or integration, I do think it's the wrong question. And I'm not surprised. And again, this is all due respect to Mr. Noah, but I'm not really surprised that Trevor Noah would ask the wrong question. And that is all shade, all tea. Anyway, so, but that, I don't think that's the right question, right? Because again, it lives on a binary, and it also has this idea that we it's such a fallacy to think that we had some kind of like good school system going. You know what I mean? Access to books that were better, access to shitty books. Do you know what I'm saying? Like we have to reimagine what education is like. I think often about the kids who were bussed in from East Chattanooga to where I live. And I feel infinitely better and broader to have gone to a school that was not homogenous at all. But I think all the time about, especially recently, I don't want to say that I've been some like amazing white person my whole life, but I've definitely had thoughts in the last few years thinking about what the inverse of that, how it felt to be bussed from your neighborhood into kind of a hillbilly neighborhood of white folks. Do you know what I mean? Where every Friday, all the white dudes show up in camo overalls. Do you know what I'm saying? Because they're going hunting for the weekend. I mean, just the visuals of this. It, like I said, it made me, Nicole, the white lady, right, an infinitely better person to be exposed to tons of different identities. At the expense of what? At the expense of people's safety, their comfort, their ability to learn, their space to learn, their ability to take up space in a learning environment. I feel really grateful that I also had like a lot of Black teachers to recognize Black people in authority. I think that's something that a lot of white folks miss out on. And authority.
Yeah.
I mean, right, because we've talked about this. But anyway, I'm saying all this to say that spaces like this, like Night School, which you can support with a wonderful super chat or a super sticker, a donation to the MLH channel or the Cash App or all of the wonderful mechanized ways to support this man in his venture to educate the masses. But I think we have to talk about democratizing education. I hate to use that word because it's such a buzzword, but we need to talk about reimagining what education is. So I love that she's talking about expanding our imagination, thinking about what we can create. That has been like, I think, where we're at now, because I mean, girl, it ain't good. And also, Trevor Noah, what you doing? Where are you at on Gaza? Come on, man. I can't. I'm sorry. I gotta say it.
I haven't followed Trevor Noah on this issue, and I don't. I know Trevor to speak. I don't know. We're not like friends, but like, how? Wait, I may have just done something stupid. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, thank God. All right.
I mean, listen, family. You have to donate. You have to send in a super chat because we got to get Mark a giant mute button that we comically connect to something so he can, lights up, says mute, mute, mute. Anyway.
No, I was actually worried that I did something even worse than not muting. I thought I had just like shut off the Wi-Fi, but or the internet. I have a hard line, and but I thought I had. Anyway, I thought I had messed up and actually turned on.
What's going on with the New Jersey internet? Just ain't really holding it down, right? You need to move down to Tennessee to Gig City.
That's it. Jersey sucks, man. It's the armpit of the East Coast.
Ew, I didn't say it.
Look, I will stand on it. I will stand on it.
Trevor, Gaza.
Trevor, yes. I mean, where does Trevor stand on Gaza? I honestly don't know the answer to that.
That's a great question. I think the fact that you don't know the answer to that might be your answer, right? Don't you think that Marc Lamont Hill, one of the people who's been ostracized from news, would know if another prominent Black gentleman were to say public, who had a show on Paramount, you know what I'm saying? Or whoever owns Viacom, Paramount, HBO, conglomerate, Verizon, McDonald's, whatever the heck station it is. Yeah, I think you would know. So my answer is I've heard him talk to Ta-Nehisi Coates. I've heard him talk about the book, The Message, wonderful book. And then kind of just dance around it. You know what I'm saying? And that was, by the way, that book came out maybe a year after the genocide had started. So
it's funny as you're talking. I'm reading Trevor Noah respond to a woman who confronted him about it, and I'm baffled by the answer. I don't understand the answer, actually. I literally don't understand it.
Is this on like X I'm sorry, Twitter? Yeah, that's right. I went backwards.
Yeah, a heckler tried to derail Trevor Noah's speech at a North Carolina university. He answered her question. She said, "Why don't you stand up for Palestine?" And he said, "Why are you shouting?" She repeated her question, and then he said, first of all, do you see what you're doing right now? You're not engaging me. You're putting a phone on me. And then the crowd of 5,700 people cheered. He said, right, because you're not engaging me as a human being. So what are you doing? You're not asking me a question. It feels like a lot of filibustering and not answering, almost like a deflection. I'm not saying he's deflecting, but it's not clear to me. The woman's question, let's see. Noah told the woman he wasn't trying to vilify or fight with her. I'm just trying to say, as people, we have to ask ourselves, what are we actually trying to do? He then told the woman that his views on Palestinians are publicly known and he stands by them. I'm not sure if it means by his views or by public or by Palestinians. No, it's his views. I haven't changed them, he said, adding that he supports Palestinians. I'll be honest with you. I don't think all conversations need to go to a celebrity to be solved. Noah later said that he supported the students protesting the Israel-Hamas war on college campuses nationwide. And then the heckler was escorted out by security. So it seems at the very least that he is supportive of Palestinian resistance. I don't know what that means in any kind of practical way. Like, I don't know. That can mean lots of things. I don't know what kind of support he offers. I don't know what he believes the proper. I don't know what justice looks like to him in Palestine. Based on that answer, that's not to say he hasn't given an answer. But I don't know. Now shouting someone down in the middle of a speech isn't the best way to get their political views, and to confront them with an accusation of why don't you support Palestine if he does is not fair. But if he was trying to give a full-throated, unequivocal, unambiguous answer on Palestine, he didn't do that there. Which so
I think it's
South
clear
African
he was not trying to do that. I will say also let me benefit of the doubt here. Let me play the Marc Lamont Hill, okay? Because you can be the angel right here. So let's do some benefit of the doubting here. He is a comic, you know what I mean? Comics know how to get back down and shoot a heckler down. That's what comics do, and they're good at it, and they have to, otherwise they can't do what they're doing, right? So I want to give a little bit of space for the fact that he's in a live comedy. All that to be said, I find 100% of that to be a cop-out. You're absolutely right. Celebrities aren't going to save us, and we shouldn't be looking to them to save us, and I have a lot to say about celebrity culture, like bring out the guillotines. But the reality of the situation is that when Beyonce can drop an Instagram post that gets 50 million eyes on it in 30 minutes, that is the power. I'm sorry. I can't see you, so I'm sorry. I couldn't see that you were trying to talk. I'm sorry.
No, I just said, which is wild that that you can have that kind of reach, that kind of access, off an Instagram post without that much labor put into it, right? You can, if you're.
It's just I expect more from. I'll be honest, and again, I don't want to. Let's don't pick out the Trevor Noah, because let's talk about Jon Stewart, shall we? Because here's someone with all the capital, I've heard
Jon Stewart say some positive things and push back. Am I again? I don't pay very much attention to him, but everything I've heard him say on this issue has been positive, has been good. He's been on the right side of it, but I haven't paid a lot of attention. Am I missing something with Jon Stewart?
No. First of all, Jon Stewart has been a supporter of a two-state solution and the Palestinian cause for a very long time. He has amplified Palestinian voices where others wouldn't. But I'm just sick of this trickling thing. I know that people like Jon Stewart and John Oliver, I know they have read and know the difference. I know they know what they're looking at. These are not people who are passively viewing it. And I think from comedian, I'm gonna be honest, I expect more from comedians. I expect way more from comedians than I would news anchors. Now, I think I'd love to get your take on that because I know you have a special relationship with comedy as well. I would, point to the wonderful and glorious Amanda Seales as a perfect example of this. Yeah. I need someone that can tell me the truth and not make me jump into a pool. And that's what comedians do. You know what I'm saying? They bring us, they allow us to metabolize the horror. And they allow us to do it together and laugh together. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. I'm not making this funny in any way, shape, or form.
No. This is helpful. This is super insightful and actually quite helpful. I mean, what Shayla McKinnon is saying, though, is that comedians aren't leaders, which is an important point as well. Comedians have this ability to do that, but, what do we do when the comedian doesn't want to lead or doesn't want to take up this issue? How accountable do we hold them, and do we hold them more accountable than we do another public facing profession? I don't know. Amanda is unusual. Amanda is courageous and smart and all these things. And I think comedians can be smart and thoughtful and daring and cutting edge and not want to take on political issues. So I think it's a little different when you're Trevor Noah, because Trevor's not just a comedian. He took the mantle, he held the mantle of the Daily Show. I mean, he was not just a comedian; he was a comedian for liberals, maybe the most important political show that they've watched. It was an actual political show that just happened to be kind of funny, as opposed to sort of how they imagined it before. And as Henry said,
we wrote a book called Born a Crime, right?
Yep.
Please, did I butcher the title?
No, that's right.
Yeah. And I guess what I'm saying is that, well, we can agree to disagree about comedians, because I do feel, especially right now, like, look around at the media currency that's available and the attention economy that's available. Look at how powerful. What's the weird little troll that spoke at the Madison Square Garden thing that President Musk spoke at? And he had that horrible set of jokes and just like was disgusting or whatever. We're talking about the comedian. There was some straight up goose stepping, locknet, click your boots together verbiage in that entire hours long rally. And we talked about the little troll comedian guy. And I think that's because it's a very relatable and accessible. And we talked about this when we talked last week as well, Mark, the people's access to reading information, to books, people are consuming more visual media, more auditory media. And so I expect more out of my comedians. Now, having said that, I don't know. I'm certainly, no one is looking to see what Bullet the Bunny thinks about Trevor Noah, but I will say I would want more from a man who has, has been very open about his experience with apartheid, with the most modern apartheid example that I can point to, that most people can remember living through. Yeah. So it is it's just disappointing. I just want more. I want more from Dave Chappelle. You know what I mean? Dave Chappelle was on an enormous stage 2 weeks ago, and the buzz in the media sphere is that he was barred from making jokes, that would make, that would show Palestinians in a human way, and it would basically talk about Gaza. And in fact, that he wanted most of his set to be about that. And I asked myself, that blows my mind. If we're so far gone that Dave Chappelle cannot say in a live show, and I get that there's a delay and they could cut it or whatever, but I mean, make a splash, man. That is that's a strange thing. That's a very strange space we're moving into, Mark. I think, I don't know. I don't want to pile on, especially since we've just talked about two very prominent, very, very intelligent, very Black men who've been able to make their way to the top of the pile. I'm not the person that should be making this critique, but it does hurt me.
No, I see why. I mean, I think I've become somewhat pessimistic about the possibilities of these rich, famous voices doing much for us, and so I probably lowered my expectations and lowered my bar so much that I don't even notice it. But I think it's right to demand and expect some things. By the way, Jazz LP wrote in earlier, segregation versus integration. Look at where we are now as a people, and then add and subtract with respect to the outcomes of the pros and cons. I think that's the right formulation, and I think for a lot of people that means, hey, segregation might not be so bad in the right context. Not to say that Black Americans should remain segregated, because we were under Jim Crow, we were under apartheid, but to say that the idea of segregation as such shouldn't be viewed as problematic. Let's just talk about one.
Let me ask you, I'm sorry. I know you're trying to move along, and I know it's so late, but I just have one follow-up about that, which is, don't you feel, who do you think the audience for that show is, that podcast is? Who do you think specifically that little segment, the audience is?
That's such an interesting question. And again, I've never watched Trevor's podcast, so I know nothing about it, but just knowing who he is in general, I would imagine white liberals are the audience. Yeah. I mean,
So, I mean, I find it interesting that for infotainment, to use Miss Amanda Seale's word that she's been using a lot lately, for infotainment, that we did a several hours talk about, like, maybe regaling what segregate. I don't know. I just fear that's a slippery slope, man. Let's don't make it okay for if your audience is primarily white liberals, I'm wondering, are they all sitting around talking about let's go back to all white schools? That concerns me. I feel like,
and I doubt they are. But I think, again, even posing that provocation to them or presenting that provocation to them is probably a stretch for a lot of them, because there's probably a discomfort in even being able to think about that in a certain kind of way. Because
Trevor Noah is gonna come for me. Like, I'm just a little person. Like, I have nothing. Please don't come for me. I bought your.
It sounds like you already got beef. Like, does he owe you money or something? Or is this one of those things you'll tell me later?
Well, we do have a friend in common who has never been reached out to in this entire. Someone that you also have in common, and I find it very interesting. Someone who's got literal blood and skin in the game, and is someone who worked for him and was his friend, and you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Let's do one more story here before we go. It's really more of an update than a story, but I do want to talk about, sadly, the continued death count. Sorry, for some reason
we can talk about all of that too. That Miami thing was insane, y'all. I know that you have all these set up so that Princess can edit it, but while you're setting that up,
I have no idea why. There we go. Okay. Let's just talk really quick. As of right now, the Gaza Health Ministry has confirmed that 48,291 Palestinian deaths have taken place since October 7th. 48,291 Palestinian deaths with another 111,722 people wounded. These numbers are disturbing, to be sure. They're even more disturbing when we look at how many have happened since the ceasefire. Striking numbers. Also, Hamas proposes exchanging all Israeli captives and Palestinian prisoners in one go during the second phase of the ceasefire deal, with the aim of reaching a permanent truce and a full Israeli pullout. As of now, Israel has violated the truce dozens of times, according to many sources, and really doesn't see an end in sight, doesn't desire an end in sight. The Palestinian group also confirms it will release the remaining 6 living captives who were set to be freed in the first phase on Saturday, as Israel's Foreign Minister Gideon Saar says negotiations for the second stage of the deal, quote, will happen this week. The reason why I'm telling you all this is because we as a community have some thinking to do. Is the ceasefire enough? Or do we need to think beyond the ceasefire in terms of not just what justice looks like, but also how to practically hold on to a non-violence at a moment where it seems like the non-violence is only happening on one side. It seems like the Palestinians are still catching hell. And now suddenly the world's starting to look away again. And this is where we need to turn up the heat, put more attention on things, put a spotlight on Gaza, as well as the West Bank, as well as the East Jerusalem, because so much is happening right now. So much is at stake. And as long as people believe that there's a ceasefire and there's nothing to worry about, it'll happen without any sort of accountability. I apologize, Bullet. We got to go. But you got to hang out with us more often.
We gotta work this out. We gotta get a system going. You know what I mean? I don't think that this is like, I should be a tiny little dot over here occasionally. You know what I'm saying? Like this feels a little too equitable, just for the record. Like,
equitable is good. Sometimes it's fun to talk to somebody. Sometimes I'm sitting here.
I hear you. Hey, you know, I have some ideas. You know, you've got a wonderful community who has lots of ideas about how to support you and support this community.
Well, I gotta know. Well, you know, I would love for some other regular members, literal members, to come on and hang out with us too. You know, I think that would be dope. If you have any recommendations, let me know. If any of y'all want to jump on here with Bullet or instead of Bullet or instead of me and hang out, you know, I'm down. Just let me know.
I do think that would be a very interesting segment to maybe add to the week and like take away from the energy of like having a produced night school. You know what I mean? You could just chat with these folks, man. There's lots of people. I think that look at all these people out here. They want to jump. They want to talk to you. I want Jazz LP on here. That's who I want on here.
I would absolutely.
Jazz LP and Boaz Kim. We want those two in here.
I think that would be super dope. Let's make it happen. I know we didn't get to the Jewish man shoots Israelis by mistake, but we did cover it last night on the show, so you can see it on last night's show as well. And hopefully, you know, justice is achieved everywhere. in all of these stories that we're covering tonight. Hopefully, we get to the answers in the places that we want to be. In the meantime, family, thank you for watching Night School. Bullet the Bunny, always good to see you. Everybody, thank you for watching. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Also, if you're so inclined, hit the join button and become a member of our monthly paid subscription family. We could use the support. It helps us develop. It helps us grow. It helps us sustain what we're doing. It helps us get staff. It helps us pay the people who are already here. It helps us pay for the studio. It helps us produce and fund all the programming that we do. So please, family, strongly consider it. If you don't want to make a monthly commitment to the channel, I understand that, but you can make a one-time commitment to the channel. Right now, you can simply make a one-time payment to the channel via these apps: Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle. All you gotta do is go there and drop something. If you leave $1, it's not too little. If you leave $1 million, it's not too much. I promise you it's not. Anything in the middle, we're good with as well. No amount is too big or too small. Please consider dropping something, particularly as we enter the middle of the month. It's important for us to have as much financial support as possible to keep this program and keep this channel going. Also, if you're asking what the goal is, it's $10 per person. If everybody who's watching tonight were to drop $10 in Cash App or Venmo or Zelle or whatever, if everybody were to do $10 who's watching right now, we'd be able to meet our financial goals for the month. So please consider dropping $10 in, and we go from there, family. I love y'all and I appreciate y'all, and I will see you tomorrow.